Okay, so we're going to start with Lightbox, and I'm going to select the ZSphere project, and we're going to make sure that we are not using the perspective. So I'm going to use the reference over here, and I'm going to bring the draw dock on the left, and we're going to use the left side reference and using a path, and let's select the reference over here. Now we're going to make some adjustment with the reference. So you can flip the reference over here. You can go to the adjust, and if you come down to the adjust menu, so over here you can decrease the contrast of this image so that it's not going to clutter in your eyes, and it will allow us to model it properly. And we can decrease the brightness a little bit. There we go. Maybe contrast, I think it's almost fine with that. All right, maybe a little bit brightness. There we go. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Let's hit OK. There we go. Now let's start with the ZSphere. So upper corner you have the edit, draw, move, scale, rotate. So we can move over here, and yeah, that looks fine. There we go. Let's come to the front view, and I'm going to hit Q and just draw out a sphere on it. So what I'm trying to do over here is following the spine over here. Now this is very important that you follow the spine, because this will give you the gesture of the character. And we are just making a default pose over here. So I'm trying to capture the gesture and the form. Make sure you don't have to be exact over here. Remember, we're just making a base mesh over here in order to get a structure, because later on we're going to add up the second detail. The detail is divided into three sections. First, you create the base mesh. In the second section, you create the blocking out of the mesh. And after that, the last section is where you add the details, the texture of the skin and everything. So again, following the neck over here, and again, not exactly the same, but just follow the contour. There we go. And I'm moving from front and left a lot, so I'm making sure that in the front I check that my angles are perfectly fine and aligned properly. I'm also putting the jawline over here. Now this is not compulsory for you, but it will help you to get a nice sense of guideline over here. Okay, it looks fine. Maybe just a little bit. So again, I'm not going to exactly the same. And this looks fine. There we go. And there's a little bit error, but that's okay. Like we already talked about the previous video. And okay, it's look good. Great. Now let me see from the front. It's fine. Maybe the rib cage needs to be a little bit bigger. And again, just getting the form out of it. All right, let's add the tail over here. So I just add the blocking for the tail. Now remember, this hip area is very important, because in this hip joint you are also having the legs, the tail, and the body. So I'm going to create the legs over here and just finding a right angle. There we go. Now it's not going to be completely like a side. We'll just bring it a little bit down. So also make sure you are keep watching side by side your reference over here, so you get the idea, because only the side reference will not going to help us completely. We also want to make sure that we also have some perspective reference over here side by side as well. So just checking the angles over here. Now let's start with the shoulder, which is known as deltoid, and let's add the elbow. There we go. And again, just moving a little bit. There we go. And let's add the wrist over here. Great. Maybe a little bit for the form, I'm going to add in between a Z-sphere just to get a little bit muscles over there. All right, so let's begin with the hands. And for the hands, we need to understand the fingers, because in this side reference we can only see only 2 fingers but in reality there are actually 3. So I need to pick a good reference. So for example, you can look over here. There are actually 3 fingers over here. And maybe let's try this one, I guess. This one is from the movie. And you can just get an idea how the fingers are in the flow. That's what we wanted. So I'm going to start adding the spheres. Maybe over here, and one more over here. Now this is again just a base, and I'm going to try to move. Now it's a little bit hard sometimes, but if you get a correct angle, you can try to move them. Make sure your left hand is on the WER, also the Q, and your right hand is on the pen tab. This will make things easier for you. It's more like a harmony. Once you get this flow, then you can do these things very quickly. Just following the flow over here. And again, doesn't need to be exact, but just close enough. I'm not going to add the nails. I'm going to do this in a separate video. But just finding a good angle over here. There we go. Now let's start with the 3rd finger. Now for this we don't have the reference, so I'm going to use my perspective and just to find a good angle, maybe. There we go. And again, it doesn't have to be exact, but close enough. Maybe there we go. Okay, just a little bit tweaking over here. Make sure it's completely rounded. So again, keep your reference with you. You can even download your own references if you want. I would recommend collect much reference as you can, so you have a better sense of understanding the character. Okay, this looks great. Now let's start with the tail. So I'm going to add another sphere on the tail, and I will bring it all the way to the end, because later on we can add in between the spheres. There we go. And again, we can move a little bit up and maybe scale it down. So I'm hitting W and E, W for move, E for scale. Just positioning on the right place. Great. Maybe just a little bit scaled up over here. There we go. And maybe just adding a sphere in between and just giving a little bit more volume over here. Let's start with the legs. And let's add a muscle over here. There we go. The good thing about ZSphere, it's completely rounded. So that means the character that you are making it's coming out completely rounded. So I'm making sure from the front view and the side view, just checking all these corners. Make sure that you are just not using the side reference, but you are checking all the corners over here. Because when you are looking from the 3D, you need to check and from every angle. So it's really important that you check every angle. Because sometimes what happens is that we model it from the side view, and when we see it from the front view, it completely looks different. So this is important that you check every angle. So let's add another sphere over here and maybe just give a nice position and maybe just add another sphere. There we go. Now the feet is a little bit complex, but again, it's the 3 fingers over here in the feet. So I'll just give one sphere and maybe just finding a good angle. There we go. Just maybe again adding some volume over here. And I'm just checking the angles. Again, I'm using every angle to see my reference. Okay, let's add another finger. And I'm going to start with the middle finger over here and then start adding the side fingers. So first we have the index over here. Now it's only 3, so generally we have the index, middle, and the ring finger, which is actually completely on the hands, but we are using the legs over here. And you can see there's a kind of a glitch in going on, which is completely fine. Now it's not an error, it's just ZBrush giving you a warning that there could be an error over there. So just aligning with the reference. There we go. Okay, maybe just a little bit. And let's add the fingers for the foot. And again, I'm using the side and front just to align them properly. There we go. Just adding some volume. There we go. Now for the third finger, it's a little bit slightly different then. And also I'm making sure that there is a little bit gap in between, because velociraptor have the fingers quite open. So there's a gap in between over there. Especially this third finger. Need to make sure. Just pull it out closely. There we go. And there we go. Let's turn on the floor. So with the floor, you can see the reference. If I turn on the floor, the reference is gone. You can assign a hotkey to the floor if you want. That make things a little bit smoother. But I like this way. Okay, so let's see. Looks fine. Maybe the pelvis needs to be goes a little bit in. The knee and the pelvis goes a little bit up. And make sure always check your perspective. So I'm turning on the perspective right now to check everything looks fine. And let's continue on the next video.